Welcome, everyone, to the Wellness Project. My name is Amy Clark. I'm owner and operator of Earthlight Energies. I'm a certified and registered energy healer and Holy Fire Reiki master. And we're broadcasting today, February 22nd, 2023, from beautiful North Bay, Ontario. And today, I have with me Noah Parkin, and we are going to talk about Noah's path to healing. So I'm just going to stop this so we can get back on full screen. Welcome to the program, Noah. I'm really excited to have you here because you have such an interesting story to tell, and I really appreciate you being willing to share this openly with everyone.
I'm excited to share. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we felt, because Noah started out with me as a client and eventually became a level 2 Reiki practitioner, Holy Fire Reiki practitioner. And because of what he experienced before he came to see me, and then his experiences through his healing journey, we felt that his story would be quite powerful to share with other people, so that people know that there's hope and there's healing out there. And I think for you, Noah, especially why it was so powerful is that you really were determined to come out of this as a totally different person and being whole and complete and having a different life after what you experienced. So before we go any further, if you want to take a few minutes and just share with us as much or as little as you feel you would like to. And while you're doing that, I'm going to see if I can get this thing off with my screen.
Sure. So I started as a paramedic in 2007. And I worked until approximately 2018 when I was initially diagnosed with PTSD. I went off work in 2018 and was kind of open to anything and everything that might be helpful. And that included different therapy modalities and different exposures and different doctors and therapists that I went through. So eventually I came to a psychiatrist who, of all people, referred me to you and to Reiki. And I think the biggest thing with going through all this is just being open to anything and everything that may help get you to the other side of it. So that was kind of what brought me here. And yeah, the rest is we went from there.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's really wonderful that your psychiatrist actually referred you to Reiki, and I do know your psychiatrist, and I was really grateful to her for that, for not only for the referral, but because she's so open-minded,
Yeah,
which is not what you often see with psychiatrists. So thank you for sharing that with us. And one of the other things that I have discovered, not just with you, but with other clients, and this has become more and more prevalent over the last few years, is past lives. So whether you believe it or not, we're humans here we're souls having a human experience. We've come from other realms, other dimensions, other lifetimes. We spent time on this planet as humans. Some of us haven't ever been human. But some of that trauma and experiences that we had in those past lives, whether it was on this planet or in other planets, other places, we brought pieces of those into this lifetime for healing. So part of the custom work that I've been doing is helping people to heal from those past life trauma and pain. Now, the good part about it is some of those past lives, we've actually brought in some really powerful tools, which we'll talk about later, that as we start to clear all of the pain, the trauma, the negative belief pattern, and the patterns, the ego, all of that, then we open ourselves up to higher dimensional aspects of who we really are. And then we can get in touch with you know, why are we here? What is our purpose? So I thought it would be really good if we talked about the past lives. And one of the things we'll talk a little bit later on about Janet and who she is and how she fits into this story for you. But I was working on a client who later became, now she's a Holy Fire Reiki master. And in the process of doing some work with her, she was quite young and she'd been going to see a chiropractor for 4 years. And I went, 4 years? Well, after 4 years, if they haven't fixed your back, like, I think there's something else going on there. So when I did Reiki on her, the very first time I went, wow, there is something energetically stuck in her back. And I had an idea, wasn't sure. So I referred her to Janet, who is a spiritual consultant. And she explained to the client what it was. She told me, you know, what needed to be done. Well, really, for me, there wasn't a whole lot to do other than understand what it was and create a custom session for her, because Reiki always goes where it needs to go and does the work. But I did ask Janet, I said, well, why wasn't she born with this issue with her back then? Why now? Why did it happen now? And her response to me was, well, the age you're at in that previous life where that accident or trauma or incident happened is when it will show up in this lifetime. Right. So I thought that was quite intriguing. So when I started working on you, there was a lot of, you were also experiencing, you're highly gifted yourself. You were getting a lot of visuals, you were getting a lot of sensations and information, but there was past life stuff that you started to actually experience. So I just wondered if you could share some of your experiences from the sessions and some of the past life information you received. Not only that, but if you got any insights as to what that meant for you, or messages that helped you in your healing journey.
So it's interesting because I never knew anything about past lives until the Reiki kind of introduced it to me through our sessions. And I think part of it was being open to it. And I think one of the reasons I was so open to receive it is because through my journey of therapy and PTSD from being a paramedic, I delved really heavy into meditation and mindfulness. And through that, I think I created such an open awareness to anything and everything and to accept everything to come in. I think it gave me the ability to be open to this. So when I first came and saw you, I was in a really low spot of my recovery. And I only came for a few sessions, and then kind of COVID was happening and I had a lot of stuff going on, was going through a really tough time. So I didn't come back for a while. And then I came back just over a year ago to see you. And the first couple sessions, I don't think a lot came out, but after that, a lot of things started happening and I started to experience a lot of different things during our sessions. And they're the kind of things that you don't understand it. And it's hard to really conceptualize unless you actually experience it for yourself. And it makes it difficult to explain sometimes, especially to family or friends or anyone that you talk to. But so I had a few I started to have messages and visions during our Reiki sessions. And a lot of them focused on past lives and trauma I had experienced in past lives that I still hadn't healed from. And these weren't things that you told me. These were messages I was getting during our sessions and things I was seeing. The first thing I saw, and I can remember it very clearly now, which is strange because a lot of things I can't remember and I need to look back on, but was a Rolodex of just, I get a bit of chills just thinking about it, but like a Rolodex of different people. And that was the spirits coming in and showing me all the past lives that I had had. And I remember after that session just becoming like fascinated and so excited and interested about it. And also it was during that session too that I saw myself as a soldier in a different life. And we had a discussion about that afterwards. And then we did get some confirmation through Janet later that I indeed had been a soldier as well as a police officer. So I was carrying a lot of trauma forward from witnessing a lot of horrid things in past lives. And it was interesting to me when that came forward because it made a lot of sense. I had had a lot of nightmares with my PTSD, but a lot of them had been things that I thought my mind was conjuring up, things I had never seen in this lifetime. But now it's easy to understand that a lot of those nightmares were likely things that I've seen in past lifetimes and experienced in past lifetimes. So just being open to that and understanding that, I feel like really started the healing process, and started this journey. So that, of course, intrigued me more and brought me back for more and more sessions. And after that, we did quite a few, and more experiences came. I started seeing wolves a lot, during my sessions, and they were friendly wolves, and they were coming in to support me and help me. And something I've kind of kept to myself since then is I was driving to my parents one night, not long after I had a wolf come in strong in one of our sessions. And I feel like I need to share this now, but and my parents live in London. And as I was getting close to their house, I was only about a kilometer away, and a wolf came out across the road and into the field.
Oh, I'm getting goosebumps.
I know. And I thought, what was that? Like, I wasn't sure if I saw it, right? So I stopped. It was nighttime, and I turned the car towards the field, and the lights from the car shone into the field. And sure enough, there he was, about 100 feet out. And we stood locked eyes for like a solid minute and a half, and he never moved. I finally left, but he or she never moved. So that was a really cool experience. I'd never seen
That's
a wolf
powerful.
like that. It was. And I think it's strange you don't normally see wolves, and they wouldn't stick around. So that was a really cool message that I got anyway, that they were there to support me and help me. So along with that, just trying to think of the other past lives, things that I saw. I remember I did have a message come in as well. Sorry, before I get to that, I started seeing more animals, not just the wolves. I remember I saw chickens and maybe elephants, I forget, but the message that came with that was, we're showing you this so you don't have to see the trauma that we're healing you from. So that trauma from the past lives that the guys were coming in to help heal was being hidden over this shroud of other things. They were showing me these visions during the sessions. And then in one of our more recent sessions, we're nearing the end of the block we were looking at doing, I had a message come in saying, the chains are broken and you're free now. And that was almost like releasing all of that trauma I'd been through in those past lives. So it's been quite the experience, very healing, and a very exciting journey for me through all the past life stuff. Yeah.
And I think just to kind of go back to some of what you were talking about as well, when the work that I do, so just to give a bit of backstory, because you did have a gap in there between, but during that gap, some incredible things happened in my own practice and I mean, the time, it's always divine timing to me, because even though the sessions were effective and everything else, you were still in a pretty low place. And then, like you said, COVID happened. But in that period, the work I did just took on a whole different direction.
Yeah.
And the custom work that I started to develop and do, and this was because I was getting clients coming in that my previous, so the beauty of Reiki is that it's deeply healing. There's nothing wrong with any other style of Reiki. It does the work it needs to do. However, the more and more I worked with the energies and developed myself and became aware more and more of my own gifts, I started tapping into a much higher quality, more effective energy, let's say. And it's available to everyone. It's just not me particularly. We all come in with our own gifts and stuff like that. And it just seemed my path was starting to take a different direction. And then because I started to notice that the clients that were coming in were having much more trauma, more past life information was coming forward. And I'll just leave it at that. There's more to it. And I thought, well, I need something that's more effective, that's going to help them get to the heart of it as quick as possible to move these people along on their healing journey. And through that, I designed this custom program with these, just call them clearings or experiences, to help the person along the way. So it's still Reiki based in that it can do no harm. It always respects free will. The Reiki still flows, goes where it needs to go. And for some of the work, I work with Bill Johnston, who is another Holy Fire Reiki master, and I also trained him in the Earth Light Energies work that I do as well. So this whole combination started to happen in that year or two between the last time you saw me and when you came in. And there was something else I was going to say about that. It'll come to me, but it was almost like that pause had to happen in order for you to come, so I could be ready for the next part of your healing journey.
Right.
So I just love how that comes together. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So I think it's important to understand too, that when you're in those sessions, you're protected and the sessions are sealed so that you don't have to go back and relive all that trauma. So even, I think it's safe to say that even when you were in those experiences, you knew that that was happening, you knew the clearing was happening, but you weren't it wasn't impacting you in a negative way.
No, I can say, and I should have touched on this, that there's never a feeling of fear or worry. It's always the safe, loving, warm feeling. And even afterwards, things feel more clear. And I know sometimes that emotions can be high after clearing sessions. For the most part, for me, I didn't really experience any high, like negative emotions. For the most part, my experience after was like a calm, clearing, relaxed feeling for about a week afterwards. But no, there was never anything fearful or worrisome about the sessions. It was always a nice, calm, loving feeling.
And I think I really love what also happened in this lifetime, because there was an experience of trauma that had come up that you kind of were aware of, but you weren't really sure of. And then when that came up, the beauty of it was that in consultation, I mean, I kind of already had an idea, but the beauty is you already had an idea. You have a choice you had to make around that. Do I need to really engage in it, or can I let it go? Janet confirmed there was nothing served by going down that path. It was about just letting it go and moving forward in your life.
Yeah, and it was almost helpful to have that confirmation, because it's the only real confirmation to me that's ever been there that it occurred. And then already dealing with it, partly in therapy, being unknown was quite difficult, but and then the ability to be able to just let it go after was that was when the chains were broken.
Chains were broken. Yeah. And I mean, just to talk a little bit more about Janet, since we've been talking about her. So I met Janet 3 years ago now through a client, actually. And she told the client, who you now know, you need to go see through his brother, you need to go see a Reiki master. And he found me. And then I said, oh, who sent you here? And I said, oh, I haven't heard about Janet. Can you give me your name? And we connected, and she's phenomenal. Like, she's a reader. She doesn't like being called a psychic. She gets very detailed information. And I mean, I've pushed her a lot. Like, she, as far as I always have a lot of questions and want to get more information from my clients. I am a member of the Canadian Reiki Association, so I'm not able to pass on any psychic messages. I pick up a lot of information in my client sessions. I can share a lot of it as long as it doesn't come across as, counseling, therapy, whatever, and psychic. But the beauty of her is that I can then, with permission from the client, say, okay, here's everything I picked up. I have kind of the outline, or I have an idea. Can you confirm, deny, give me more information? And then she fills in. I just say, I have the outline. She colors it all in. Yeah. And I found that through this process, and I built this into my program, she does get paid for her services. I don't charge extra to the client because I build it into my fees. But I find that this process has just given answers. Like, we always want answers. Why is this happening? Am I going crazy? No one else seems to understand or be able to, and even through your own process, you might even have an idea, which a lot of times you did, But just having that confirmation to know that you are on the right path, that you were getting the right information is so helpful. So having her part of this process has been really healing for a lot of clients. And I especially seen, you know, for you, it's been so interesting because you were getting the visuals.
Yeah.
I was getting the energetic information. You were getting the visuals, and then she was confirming the rest of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of what you were experiencing is like, wow, why did I even pick this career?
Yeah.
You know, you told me that you decided to be a paramedic when you were like 12 years old.
Yeah, when I was very young.
Yeah.
And I always, since I came into this world, I always just felt the need to help people.
Yeah.
And I remember saying that when I was very young. And then one of the things that came from Janet, I had never told you that. And one of the things that came from Janet was my desire to help people, those exact words. And I always said that. So at a very young age, I knew I wanted to be a paramedic. And it was a passion for me. It wasn't just a career. So going forward in that, it was hard to accept the PTSD because it's all I ever wanted to do. It felt like my life calling. There was nothing else for me. And it was interesting. It didn't make sense to me that the PTSD came on as strong as it did when it came on.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because you had a huge epiphany after one of your Reiki sessions, and you got a very clear message about that it didn't happen after the Reiki session. It was like about a week later, you all of a sudden went, oh my God, now it makes sense.
This makes sense. Yeah. So, I mean, I had been experiencing signs and symptoms of PTSD previous to the summer of 2018, but they weren't debilitating. They were tolerable and they were manageable. Up until then, for the most part, I did seek out meditation to like start the healing process without even knowing that's what I was doing, without even realizing it was PTSD. The summer of 2018 brought a couple of difficult calls, and the last one that it was a difficult call, but it was a very successful call. I had a young woman who had a young child who went into cardiac arrest. And without going into like much detail, it was a very dynamic call, but my partner and I ended up saving her life in an extraordinary way and very unexpectedly. Most of the time when we encounter patients like her, we have a really tough time bringing them back. But that day it worked and everything went exactly as well as we hoped it could. It was after that call that I started to deteriorate quite quickly with my PTSD. So that was in July of 2018. And I went off work the beginning of September or the middle of September. Anyway, it was only a couple months after, and there was no significant calls between then. That was the last significant call I really did. And that call really stuck with me, even though it was a successful call. Usually those ones stick with you in a good way, but it didn't. I worked through it a lot with my therapist. We came to a couple like really strong, really good conclusions about why it was sticking with me and shifted perspective on it and worked really well with it. And I was grateful for that work. But it still just never made sense to me why I started to deteriorate so badly after that specific call. So we did a session. It was a very deep healing session last year. I don't remember exactly when, but I remember, like you said, about a week later, it just kind of coming to me and realizing, having this epiphany that she was the reason I became a paramedic in this life. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there was other reasons along the way, of course, because there was other lives I saved, but in the end of it, she was the reason I became a paramedic, and I didn't need to be a paramedic anymore. After I saved her, because she was the reason I came into this life, to heal people, to help people, and primarily it was to save her and keep her here for whatever reason. And after that, I didn't need to be a paramedic anymore. But like I touched on, it was my passion, it was my life. So there was no way I was just going to leave the career and be like, oh, I want a new job. The only way to get me out of it was to get sick.
To be sick.
But yeah, that was the only way that I could stop and move on to my next calling, which I feel like is still coming and still developing, right? So that epiphany, like it really, it helped the healing so much and just shone so much light on the reason that call stuck with me for so long. And it made sense then after all of that.
And then it gave you what we often try to get people to do is rather than, and it's hard because we're stuck in all these things that happen to us through life. And it's very hard to not be engaged emotionally, not to be engaged with, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's happening to me, whether it's your health, your relationships, money, whatever that is. But when you can stand above it and look at it from the observer view and go, wow, this is really, my friends, hey, like, this is terrible that's happening to me. And I say, no, but it's so very cool and interesting.
Yeah.
Look at what the life path you designed for your soul, for your own soul education and development, but also to lead you to why you're actually here.
Yeah.
And what is your life purpose? And no one wants to get sick and no one wants to go through, but you also built into your plan to be here, all the people that you meant to meet and to help you along the way, as well as insights and tools for yourself so that you could get through that and understand that there's much more for you to do here.
There
right?
is, yeah.
So
that's one of the messages I remember now that I got in one of my sessions, actually, that I'm going to be here for a long time.
Yeah.
And I have a lot more work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the message that I got from Janet, and I don't know that I shared it with you right away. Sometimes I don't share information I get just because it's not the right time. And it's just, and if I tell people, it's not going to go anywhere. It'll be meaningless. But what was so interesting was that, and fascinating for me, is that you had spent many, many lifetimes in healing or helping, wanting to help people. So it was always some kind of soldier or police officer. So it was all that around. And as a police officer and as a soldier, you experienced all this trauma, and even as a police officer, when you came into that lifetime, it was to help people.
Yep.
It was always about helping people. So when you came into this lifetime, that sense or feeling of pull that we get towards something is oftentimes because of the past lives that we've had.
Right.
And then, like it can be really hard too when you think, well, this is what I'm meant to do. This is my passion. This is why I'm here. And to have that end so suddenly.
For sure.
But then your experiences, because now we can do is maybe talk about outside of Reiki too, because you also then some really cool and interesting things started to happen for you. And all of this is now information that if you come in front of somebody that is going through this experience, now you have your own personal experience that you can share and tools and resources that you can share with people to kind of help.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that happened was you got invited to be part of a pilot project. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was a couple of years ago, this around the same time that you and I had first met, and I did a couple sessions, and I applied to a group called Project Trauma Support out of Perth, Ontario, and is a very expensive undertaking. It's a week-long retreat that they put on for clients with PTSD, whether they be military or first responders. But they have a very large sponsorship program as well. I never expected to get in. I literally just touched base with them. I think I might have sent an application in and kind of forgot about it. A few weeks later, they called me and said, we have a spot for you and it's next week. And I was shocked and I couldn't believe it. I was so grateful. We had to do some quick shuffling around at the house, of course, with family, whatever. And my wife did a lot of work to make sure that happened, to make sure I could go. And I was able to head out to Perth to be able to experience some amazing healing with a cohort of guys. So I met there, I think there's 8 guys in our group, 8 or 10. And we met there for a week of different holistic experiences to work through healing together. And Project Trauma Support provided us with, it was like a litany of different ways to heal from the trauma. And on top of that, the bonding that we got to experience with the other men that had kind of been through the same thing we had been through. Had some fascinating experiences that week, and just again being open to receiving information. I even had some information come in that week, and I didn't realize it till a long time afterwards, during some breathing exercises. I had amazing equine experience with horses, and some deep healing with the horses and their energy, which is amazing. And on top of it all, I still meet with these guys. I actually just met with them last night. So it's been years now, and we try on a weekly basis to meet via video chat, because we're all around the province. So I developed this deep bond with these men, and we are still have the ability to share everything we're going through now, and ways we're finding to feel better and deal with our symptoms still, and ways to heal. So it's cool that I'm able to provide my experiences through Reiki with them as well. And I know at least one of them has opened the door to that, to healing through Reiki, and being able to share that experience with them. So that's been
yes, thanks for that referral.
yeah. So that's been a great point of healing in my life through PTS.
Now, and I think too, that support is really important. I mean, clearly your wife, I haven't had a chance to meet her yet, but she's been extremely supportive to you in actually even in supporting you to come for the Reiki session. So I think it was through her that you actually started coming back. She gifted you a session for your birthday.
Yeah.
And she saw the, she obviously has been experiencing the changes that you have been going through. And those changes can be hard, because people, they see you one way, then they see, as you're going down, then they see you start coming back up. But that in itself can actually, as that healing process starts to happen, can actually cause fear in people.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with the reaction of, because it's a very interesting dynamic that happens. And that's all part of the healing process. So, and as you heal, you're bringing those people along with you, or they fall away. People will fall away as well.
It's funny. Hannah and I had that exact conversation recently with, everybody changes, of course, but I've gone through like a dramatic change. With the healing has come a lot of different lifestyle changes as well. And I've gone from like the Noah she knew and fell in love with to this brand new Noah. So it's almost like this new exciting thing that we're going through together, and her support over the years. I wouldn't have been able to go do the things that I've been able to do without her support, for sure.
Yeah. And it's so important. And it's great that she's accepting of the Reiki, and we'll get back to that in a second, but just wanted to continue on with your journey. So how comfortable now, there were some other really dramatic things that happened because of the medication and everything that you were on. Then you were able to completely, as you were seeing me, some of the medication you started to weed off of, and then you completely said, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm doing these other things to try to, I don't want these pharmaceuticals to be doing this, but you were under the care of your psychiatrist. So she was helping you to do that. So I think that was just a huge thing in itself, that you were so rapidly able to make that transition.
Yeah. So it's funny, because again, psychiatrist main job is to prescribe people medications. But when I first met her, the first thing she did was the first thing she said was, you're on too many. You need to start dropping this one. So she kind of started the ball rolling on like, maybe I don't need this medication, because I think I was on 6 different mental health medications when I first met her. So that started the ball rolling. And then shortly after I met you, and then shortly after that, I went to PTS and discovered all these other healing experiences. And then, came the decision, like, I want to do this naturally. I want to do it without these medications. Coming off them was terrible. Is a terrible time. Very difficult. A lot of like really intense high emotions, suicidal ideation. It was a real struggle. But once I did, it was worth it. And 100% you need to be under the direction of a psychiatrist to be able to come off medications in that way. So, and then we got into the Reiki and the healing. And my therapy was really supportive in that time as well. During this whole time, I must say that I was going to therapy like once a week, and my therapist and I had an amazing relationship. She knew me front and back. She knew what I needed every week when I came into session, and we shifted perspective on so many things. But I found as I was getting to the end of therapy, there was one thing that therapy couldn't take away, and it makes sense. It couldn't take away my flashbacks or my triggers, and it couldn't take away my nightmares. And there's just no way anybody can do that for you. And there's no way you can expect that. So other than that, therapy was like my go-to for all my tools and everything I needed. So that when I came to you, those were still really strong, my flashbacks and my nightmares. And they had been going on for like the nightmares for like 10 years, along with the fleeting suicidal ideation, and the flashbacks like 4 to 5 years. And then, and I don't even know, like, it didn't just stop suddenly, but I woke up one day and I realized with the nightmares, like, I haven't had a bad dream in a while. And then I remember the first good dream I had, and was like, I didn't know that you could have good dreams. And it was like almost another epiphany. It was so cool. But something even, and I must say, I still don't have nightmares to this day. So it's been about a year now. And there's some dreams I do have come back that seem traumatic, but during the dreams, nobody dies anymore. Everything turns out well in the end somehow. So that's been healing through the Reiki. That's helped that and changed that for me with my dreams. But the other one that has just changed my entire life is my triggers and my flashbacks. And this happened more suddenly after one of our sessions. And I don't remember specifically what session it was, but I remember the first time it came into my head because I had a flashback come into my head caused by a trigger. So I was maybe driving by somewhere and a flashback came in, and 3 words came into my head, and it said, "It doesn't matter." And then the flashback just disappeared like that. And since that day, that has happened every single time a flashback has come back. So, and it's just, anybody with PTSD would understand how incredibly life-altering this experience is, because those things torture you, they chain you, they're intrusive, and there's nothing you feel like you can do about them until all of a sudden this just happened. And it's made me a different person for sure.
Well, I remember the day you came in and said, like, it was, you hadn't had, as you were progressing through, haven't had a nightmare, any nightmares? No, haven't had any. Wow. And it's like, wow, I've had nightmares for so long, I can't remember what it was like not to have one. And it's a whole different, and I remember, just because I'm on, my studio is on a very busy street, and of course the paramedics are flying by on their ambulances quite regularly, and we'd be in session, I go, no, here comes an ambulance. And it would be, I could tell energetically and even physically how it was affecting you. And then one time you were on the table and one went by and it was like, I didn't sense anything. And I asked you after and you said, nope, I heard it and I just knew what it was and just let it go.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It's amazing.
It's pretty, yeah, your journey has been really inspiring and really powerful. And then what happened, because as you go through this journey, like, you're meeting all the people along the way. So if we agree that, you know, we have already done a contract of what we're going to experience in this lifetime, whether we like it or not. Maybe we didn't read the fine print. And then everyone always says, yeah, but who would agree to all that trauma, all that awful stuff? Like, who would agree to that? Well, you did.
You have lessons to learn.
You have lessons to learn, and it's all part of why you're here. And now some of it, you know, we've been blocked and prevented, and there's other things happening, and we're not going to talk about that today. But, you know, then you write in these people in your contract who you're going to meet along the way. And then the other great experience that you had is you decided to go to a Reiki retreat with Megan, who is a Holy Fire Reiki master, who is one of my students. And through that experience, you had some pretty profound experiences, but you also got to meet Trevor. And then you have this connection with Trevor that I have just well, I told him before he even met Trevor, there was a reason for him to meet him.
Okay.
And then we've since discovered that you've had off-planet experiences and lifetimes with Trevor. So you were meant to meet him.
For sure.
And so if you want to talk a little bit about that as well.
So we had talked about how well Hannah supported me, and actually Hannah found that retreat that Megan and
Mhm.
Trevor were putting
Yeah.
on and encouraged me to go to it. And I went out, and it was the first retreat I had ever been to. And, you know, the demographic of retreats like this are typically not someone like me.
Yeah.
So it's hard to kind of put yourself out there and go, but I just through my experiences believe in this so strongly and have such a connection with it that it was a great weekend, and Trevor was there. We were the only guys there, and we connected well, and we had some really deep healing Reiki sessions, and some fantastic meditations over the weekend, and developed a bond. And since then, Trevor and I have reconnected and shared in some interesting ideas for the future. And you know, there may be a reason that that experience happened. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you decided you're working on a new career as you go through your healing process and going in a different direction. And the messages that we got were, you know, this career that you're working towards to be a financial advisor is still helping people.
Yeah.
So we can be in other professions. We don't have to be healers. We don't have to hang up our shingle. We can actually, what I mean, someone says, what do you mean by hanging up your shingle? I realize I'm older than, but it's if you start your business, you don't have to be a functioning, you know, full-time business as a Reiki practitioner healer in order to be healing people. We're all placed where we need to be to help people.
Yeah.
So that's the new career that you're on. But then you made another decision.
So when I got PTSD, I was diagnosed with PTSD and went through the healing process. At the end of the process was part of deciding what I wanted to do going forward, because I'm still at an age where I have a long time ahead of me career-wise. And so I decided it was tough to decide. Like I was like thinking about a social worker, or, yeah, in the financial field, but I still had like this. And I remember talking to my therapist, Andrea, about it. I just had this deep-seated feeling of needing to help people still. And financial advisor, like, yeah, you're right. I felt like I was still helping people, but it still just didn't feel right to me. So then through the Reiki experiences, I realized that was part of my future. That was what I needed to do. So we chatted about it, and I signed up for the course and came in and got my Reiki level 1 and 2 practitioner, which has been amazing and so exciting. And I find it's the beginning of my next helping journey. And I know there's going to be a lot more to it, and it's going to be really exciting, but it's already opened doors for me. So there's a camp, and I haven't even told you this yet, but there's a camp that my family and I go to every summer for adults with PTSD and their family. And it's to support the entire family through the process. And I had a meeting with them last week, and they actually invited me to come back as a Reiki practitioner this time. Yeah. And it's,
congratulations.
I'm
like, so happy.
Yeah, as a facilitator family rather than like a client family with them. So already it's led me to a place where I'm going to be able to give back and open doors for people that I'm so happy were open for me during my journey. So.
And look at all the pieces you picked up along the way, like because you were so open to trying anything and any modality, whether it was the traditional medicine therapies, Reiki, the group stuff. Now you have all of that experience, and you're going to be with people that feel that, you know, they are having experiences that are very hard for other people to relate to and understand. Now you can come in as an experiencer and then also be able to provide some healing. So that's really, really powerful.
Provide some hope for them.
Yes, some hope.
Sure. Yeah.
Because look at what you can do when you put your mind to it, because it wasn't just, you know, you have to also be engaged in the process.
For sure.
Definitely. It's not going to just happen to you. You have to be part of it. Now, when you came in for class, some pretty unique things happened. I was like, oh my God, this class, it's always the people that are together are meant to be together.
Yeah.
So 3 of the people in your class, you all were born in the same month, which
Yeah.
was never happened
Yeah.
when I have people coming in, and 2 of you had the exact same birthday.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And then through that, we discovered that all 3 of you had past lives together, and you have this deep connection with one of the young ladies that was there as well.
Mhm.
So, and then through your going through those 2 days, because the classes themselves are very transformational for people. And I always wait to see what's going to happen as far as people's gifts opening. Well, you already came in with some pretty highly attuned, probably not the right word, but you were already pretty in touch with a lot of your gifts. You
Yeah.
had a lot of intuition. You could see, your own past life stuff. You have, you experience your guides that are around you.
Yeah, the lines coming in.
Yeah, the lines coming in, but you have family who have passed on that have been there to help you. So you're very conscious of it. And then you had some other experiences after you got your placement for Reiki that it's just, it just keeps going for you, getting better and better. So if you want to touch on that a little bit.
So I learned very quickly during the weekend training that I don't just see my own past lives. I can see people's past lives that I'm doing Reiki on as well, which was fascinating to me because it's just these things come and you don't expect them, right? They just kind of show up. So that was really interesting for me to discover. And then I went home, and the first thing you do, and I'm sure the first thing everybody does when they get their Reiki, they practice on their family.
Yep.
Because that's the closest people to you and they feel comfortable with you. So I have a 6-year-old daughter that has always had, like most kids, a tough time going to bed at night. And the first night I got my Reiki level 1, I came home and I was like, oh, well, let's try Reiki. And it's funny because children are so inquisitive. And I talked to my wife about this after, and she's very inquisitive about everything, as she should be. And she didn't have any questions about Reiki. She was like, okay, like just right away ready to do it. And she already has like this deep understanding of it because she came to mom a couple days after I'd started doing Reiki with her. And I forget how the conversation went, but I know she said, dad's not helping me, the Reiki is helping me. Because she knows that I'm more of I'm the vehicle, I am not the actual healer, which is fascinating. But that night I did Reiki with her, and I, just rest and relax, take some deep breaths. And before I finished the head, so within 3 to 4 minutes, because I was only doing a minute on each position, she was out sleeping. And I thought, oh, well, that was cool. Like, that was great. And maybe thought it would be a one-off, but ever since then, every time we do Reiki at night, it's the same thing. By the time I get done her head, sometimes to her shoulders, she's out and has a really good sleep. And the one night I was doing Reiki with her, I don't often get visions or messages with her, but I did the one night. I got a very strong vision and message come in. And after that session, I shared that with my wife, then told her about it. And the first thing the next morning, our daughter gets up and she shared her dreams with us, and she's really excited about it. And it was the exact same thing that I had saw in my vision. And the message was that she was healing some stuff from a past life through that.
What you saw was very traumatic, but the way she saw it, it was like, oh. And so to me, it was like, when you explained what happened, it was like, she didn't have a nightmare about it.
No, it should have been a nightmare.
It should have been, but it wasn't. It was a dream. So it was being presented to her as, okay, that's just her way of processing.
And healing from that.
Yeah. And you're also starting to see auras and that with people as well.
For sure. The different people. And again, it just comes randomly and surprisingly, but I certain people, I can just start to see their auras kind of around their head and their shoulders. And light has just exploded to me recently. So like probably 30 or 40 times a day, there will be lines of light in my peripheral, or like sparks of light all around. So the light has really started to open up and come into me.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you could also be seeing light beings, you could be seeing light codes, you could be seeing orbs. And I know for some people that might be a bit fantastical, but it's, don't believe what you read or hear, believe what you experience.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
You know, you have to believe what you experience. And, you know, part of the reason I want to talk about all this stuff too is to make it commonplace, because we're taught to fear these things or not believe these things.
Yeah.
And, you know, that we're going crazy or whatever, but
And really all of it is just here to help us.
it's all here to help us.
Yeah.
And we're so powerful, we don't even realize how powerful we are.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a good note to end on, because you've proven in your own journey that I was going to look in your file there to see when you first started to come to see me. But I mean, in retrospect, like when you look back on when you first came in, so it was October of 20.
Is it 19?
No, 2020.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then it was, I think it may be April, June that you stopped.
Yeah.
And then you came back again in April of 2022.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that time period, I mean, really from something that is a condition that's so debilitating, like PTSD, who people feel like they're going to be living with this until they die, you've just proven that with all of the right conditions and mindset and everything else, you can completely, would you say that you're completely healed from it, or you're still on that journey?
I'm almost there. I'm still on the journey, but I'm almost there for sure. Yeah.
It's still pretty fast.
I've come a long ways from where I started for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never expected to be where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If someone told you in 2020 that you'd be a Reiki practitioner.
I'd say, what's that?
What's that?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I am so glad that you felt comfortable sharing your story, and I just know that you're going to be doing some really great things going forward. I just, yeah, it's been a wonderful experience for me, because you've helped me in my practice too. Each client that comes in with, it's like, oh, how do we solve this one? You know, and then and it's not me, it's accessing these higher dimensional aspects of myself and other people. And there is a whole team, even with you. It wasn't just me. There was other people that I have as my trusted people that worked on you as well. So
thanks a lot for having me today.
Oh, thank you. Take care. And I will end this recording if I can remember. Hopefully I recorded this. Yes, I did.